Overdue, I think, doing this.
I think we were going to do this when? May?
I was going to say 6 months, but May sounds much more positive.
Yeah.
No, I think it's been a very busy few months, as you know, in terms of doing what we're doing. So, I wouldn't necessarily say we've got headspace to do this at this point in time, but I think it's an important aspect of moving things forward. So, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. We don't normally get a chance to talk quite like this.
No.
So, no, it's good. So why are we doing this? I guess it's just, from our perspective, a bit of an opportunity, as you said, to take a moment and really reflect on us in this point in time and talk a little bit about the team. And obviously,
the product.
The product.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice to have it in this.
Looking
this
forward
studio.
to doing a bit of a walk around with it, and we'll do a little demo as well in terms of the Halo and how that functions. So that'll be really good.
I'm sure people would like to see that.
Yeah.
So, shall we start and maybe, obviously, you know me, I know you, but for the benefit of everyone else, maybe, talk a little bit about who you and I are and...
I think so. And I think just give a sense as to maybe a little bit about our journey, because I think with all these types of things, there is a
interesting journey.
I don't know how far back we really want to go, but there is a bit of a history between us. But actually, I think it's one that, for all of its ups and downs, I think really defines who kind of we are in terms of our working relationship and how we've sort of worked on several, we call them projects, but effectively ideas that you then try and maturate through a series of activities to bring into place what kind of constitutes like the fundamental building blocks of any entrepreneurial project. So it's a journey, and we're here, and
a lot of learnings.
But I think and I'm sure you will agree, we're in a better position than we've ever been. So
definitely feels that way. Really exciting. We're very lucky. We've got a great team of people around us. Obviously, it's not just you and I. There's there's many people in this business playing a critical role. So you talked about our long history of working together. I think when it started was back in, I want to say 2007, 2008. Is that
2008?
2008. 2008.
Is that 15 years ago?
Wow. Okay.
Goes quick, right?
Does go quick. We're a bit younger then.
Yeah. Only a bit, as we like to think.
Yeah. And I suppose that was our real sort of first steps into sort of working together on an entrepreneurial level. I still remember actually vividly getting involved in the project, which was called Scubacraft. I'd heard about this guy, Robin Harris, who was kind of furiously building this prototype, not too far from here, actually, not too far from this podcast studio, and under the railway arches, literally covered head to toe.
I was sanding.
Whilst you were sanding. You literally...
At that stage.
Yeah. It was
shaping what I thought to be the future at that point in time. But
you were pretty hands-on with that project.
Yeah.
But, evidently you definitely felt that you'd really landed on something.
I did at the time. I always kind of wanted to work on something which really resonated with my passions. And I always felt that if I was able to do something that I really enjoyed doing, that it wouldn't actually feel like work.
Right.
And I think that was kind of in stark contrast to where I was at that point in time in my own sort of career. And I was feeling quite disillusioned with it. And I always found myself kind of steering away from the sort of gravy train of things. And that's not to say that, that kind of path is wrong or, but I just really felt that it wasn't for me. So I was really passionate about the sea and about being outdoors and particularly around around being underwater. So I was keen scuba diver, and I grew up doing a lot of snorkeling and kind of living in coastal environments. So I thought, hey, why not? Let's build a boat that can go underwater as well. And then from that initial idea, kind of started to communicate. And at the time, I had a strong connection to North Wales, and North Wales had a really good kind of innovation support network. And it was really well funded by the European Union, obviously with the UK at that time being part of that. And so I had some kind of initial mentoring, and I was sort of told the basics of you need to do A, B, C, D, and try and get some intellectual property and try and build up the kind of the foundations in terms of getting the project going. So from a sort of a grant perspective, and sort of raising grants and sort of various other means of financing, it was quite successful in terms of doing that from sort of a regional level and a national level. And I know that we ended up applying into the European Union Horizon 2020 scheme. And we were successful on one level, which was brilliant. And then when we tried to accelerate it and move to the next level, which is a much more involved application process, we didn't quite get the answer we were looking for. We did get a seal of excellence, which is great. It's a lovely piece of paper and put it on the wall. But it's not sort of hard cash in the bank to really drive things forward. And I think that's really where a lot of projects, live or die really, is the financing in terms of being able to kind of do what you need to do to be able to move things forward.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there were a lot of highlights with Scuba-Craft. It got far more coverage than I think you and I
completely
ever expected.
Yeah, completely.
I remember you and I sort of crafting a press release, and it just went absolutely bananas, didn't it?
What do we have? How many publications?
It was just
80 or 90?
And it was the nature of the publications. It was Showboats International, Forbes. Even
I think we had
T3. Yeah, I mean there was some incredible publications that picked it up. The Gadget Show were asking us to be on the program, and of course our claim to fame was Spectre, right?
I've never eaten so many Haribos in one day.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun being film extras on the Spectre sets, and
it was cool.
It was cool. It was definitely a pinch me moment, and it felt quite bizarre at the time, but it was incredible to actually see, our product on a movie set like that. It was just incredible.
Inside Q's garage.
Inside Q's garage.
The set was incredible, wasn't it?
Amazing.
I remember like the detail and the brickwork. Everything was painted. Like old drips in pipes and bits of molds. Everything painted on. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that day a lot.
I enjoyed that day a lot. I didn't enjoy so much when we went to the cinema afterwards.
My God.
And realised we haven't quite made the cut.
Well, we had, the trouble was they'd used, one of these like camera lenses or filters that meant everything in the background was really dark.
Yeah.
So you just couldn't see it because we had a black boat.
Yeah.
Or it was wrapped in matte black at their request to make it more Bond-esque.
Yeah.
And I remember, the credits came up and I looked to you and I was like, where was it?
Yeah.
And, but anyway, nonetheless, it did actually feature on the website. They had a really cool interactive website.
They had a really good interactive element to the Spectre website, and it was nice to constantly go on that website and be able to navigate Q's Garage and actually interact with our boat. But that project came to a conclusion really. As you said, it was a project that was going to require a huge amount of capital.
Yeah,
we had a couple of offers, but I think rightly so. We realised that you've got to think very carefully about who you're working with, and
100%.
I think for us at the time, that was really important. So yeah, I think it was an incredible journey. We then went off and did our own thing for the best part of 10 years, really. I mean, we did another project, which is still, I'm pleased to say, still very much in existence, which is HydroGuard.
Yeah.
The residential flood barrier that we're now obviously looking to sort of transition to someone else.
Yeah.
But I think you and I are really proud of that project. And I think certainly from my perspective, seeing that product in the market and seeing hopefully homeowners benefiting from it.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the unlikely event of a flood is really important. It's not so much about the sort of the financials of that.
Yeah.
For me, that's more about kind of just.
Yeah, definitely. I think with all these sorts of projects, you invest a lot of time and effort into them. It's not so much about the financial side, but of course, there can be a financial involvement if you're doing it and you're not working at the same time. If you are working at the same time, then you've got very little bandwidth for kind of life that goes on in the background, particularly if you've got, I don't know, children involved. And I know that, my daughter's 11 now. So, that's certainly a balance which I felt at times historically did struggle. So you put a lot of your heart and soul into these. And, I think I always recall that you can kind of read books and you can hear things and they all say, just keep going, never give up. But I think there has to be a point at which you say, okay, enough is enough in a way. And I know that we kind of experienced that with Scubacraft.
Yeah.
Is you have to get to a point where it just doesn't make any kind of logical sense to continue. And, speaking from my own experience, I know that I think psychologically that was quite tough.
That was very hard
at the time.
Yes.
And it did take me a little bit of time to sort of work through just kind of coming to terms with it, right? Just that, it's there, it happened, and not to find myself looking back retrospectively thinking, dang, had I done this or had I done that, or what if we'd have done this or what if we'd have done that? It was what it was.
Yeah.
But HydroGuard for us, I think, was brilliant because it was a much smaller project, right? Scubacraft was, it was amazing, and it was going to be an incredible product, and we didn't need to sell a huge volume of them. They were real premium, high-end things, and but HydroGuard was kind of much more of a smaller, less technical, a much lower risk profile.
Seemed much more viable, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, again, one of the things that I think we took away from our first project was you've got to have a team of people. You've got to have, within your startup, you've got to have a breadth of experience to be able to kind of advise and guide and steer. And that's what we didn't have in our first one. Then in the second one, we tied up with a guy who was the ex-CEO of, I think it was Macro, and huge in the retail space, came in. We talked about these ideas around a product, and he was always kind of steering us towards designing and developing a product which you could sell. You could sell in B&Q, or you could sell in Homebase or Walmart, wherever it would be, and it was a one-size-fits-all solution for a flood barrier.
Yeah.
It's not the sexiest product in the world,
but there's definitely a need for them.
There's a lot of people who get flooded,
including Hannes. As you're referring to Hannes, who basically came to us with the idea, right?
Yeah.
We'd looked at Hannes potentially investing in Scubacraft. Scubacraft wasn't for him, but unfortunately he'd been flooded. I think at least on 2 occasions, maybe 3.
Yeah.
So had a real need and hadn't been able to figure that out, and had done all the traditional things of using sandbags, and obviously realised the sort of the problems with sandbags, and clearly there was a requirement for this, as you said, one size fits all barrier, and I think it was that for me was and is a really good product. I think there was a clearly defined problem that we solved with the HydroGuard barrier.
It was hard technically to get it to seal.
Yeah, the seal was hard.
I remember everyone looking to me when it started leaking water in our test tank,
particularly when
on several occasions.
Hit certification requirements.
Yeah, but we did it in the end. And I remember it being in the test tank, and they put it up to the door, And I remember the guys who were running the test tank suddenly sort of, hollered almost in delight to say, it's leaking. And when we checked it, it wasn't our barrier leaking, it was their actual door frame that was leaking. So I was like, right, okay, yeah, there is a leak, but if you just have a look there, you'll see it coming through the door frame. So, but yeah, obviously, I think we're both really pleased that sort of continues in the background. We've licensed that to another organisation who can take that forwards.
Exactly.
So it doesn't kind of bear down on us in terms of our own bandwidth.
So we did HydroGuard. We then went and did a couple of things ourselves. I went and ran a digital product studio for 10 years, which I really enjoyed. And, sort of decided last October that it was time to jump into Hilo full time.
Big decision, right?
Yeah, really big decision, but the right decision. That we are sort of less than 12 months later. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a blur these last 10 months, but
100%.
We've done what we set out to do, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So I guess be good maybe just talk about like where did this idea for Hilo come from? I think this is mainly a business trip that you went on just pre-pandemic.
Yeah, just before the pandemic. So I was working for a German company, really big company, who were supplying product into the automotive industry. So my background's automotive product development and project management.
Yeah.
And I was consulting to this company. There was a problem on one of the components they had out in China. They asked me to go out and sort of, be part of the team who were going to understand A, what the problem was, and B, how we'd fix it. So I remember getting tickets to China, being really excited because I'd never been to China, and flew out there, flew into Shanghai, and then we had one night in Shanghai, and then we flew on to Chongqing, and I had no idea about Chongqing. I knew Shanghai would be big, and I recall being on the motorway and driving in, and it was like 14 lanes of motorway, and so many cars, and I quickly grasped that it was really a mega city. Like it was 31 million people living in a city, and the sheer size of it really kind of struck me. So we were there for a week. It's incredibly interesting. We dealt with the problem. We worked out what the problem was, which was brilliant. And all the time, sort of enjoying just being overseas for a few days. But when I was there in the evening, I went down into the center of Chongqing, and they've got a Xiaomi. So Xiaomi, really kind of one of the sort of first super successful electric scooters that came to market, the M365. And there was a Xiaomi store, and I remember going in, they had like various hoverboards and kind of all this sort of like cool electrical, like mobility tech. And I had to go on an electric scooter for the first time. And it was kind of one of those moments where I was thinking like, wow, like if everyone was moving around the urban environment on this type of tiny little electric mobility device, like the reduction in pollution, it'd just be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so it really struck me. And it, obviously I was kind of aware of things like Lime and Bird, and I think they were raising vast amounts of money, and they were kind of really starting out on that shared scheme. Well, they had been for a couple of years. And I looked at it, I thought it's fantastic. And, I remember Googling, how can I fit an electric scooter onto an aeroplane? It was like, okay, I quickly worked out you can't take battery packs, and there's kind of, regulations around doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, came back, the idea really stuck in my mind. And I remember giving you a call and saying, hey, James, let's sit down and have a coffee.
Yeah. Just at the
I
time,
think I've got an idea.
Yeah, I remember that vividly because obviously I was running a business for someone, and just my wife was just about to have a baby, and then you said, "I've got an idea about a business."
Here we go.
It all seemed a little bit
Project 3.0.
Yeah, exactly. But I've never once turned down a discussion about a potential business idea. Yeah, and I think it was interesting, wasn't it? And it wasn't like we kind of hit on an idea to develop an electric scooter. No. That's not where we started. I think that wasn't the original intention. I think developing that idea that you'd had about bringing a scooter into the country.
Yeah.
You saw maybe there was an opportunity or a market here in the UK.
Yeah, and I think it literally was, like a small piece of paper with the kind of words written, can we buy a container load of these?
Yeah.
Can we set up some sort of e-commerce website?
Yeah.
How much do they cost to buy? How much can we sell them for? How much profit can we make? And of course, then lockdown came in, and I was furloughed.
Yeah.
So I had some time to, to sort of focus and reprioritize, whilst watching the clouds float by, which I have to say was lovely.
Yeah.
But that really kind of started the seeds in terms of thinking about it. And I remember talking to you, and we kind of went through some numbers, but it never worked, really, did it?
It didn't work. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think maybe the logical endpoint would have been, okay, let's just sort of draw a line under that.
We're going to let Halfords deal with it. Pure Electric, Adam Norris, credit to you. You've done an amazing job.
Yeah.
Carry on.
But, that's, I think, not necessarily how you and I operate. And before we knew it, we were thinking, actually, how good are these existing electric scooters?
Yeah, that was the thing, wasn't it? I think for us, that was the kind of pivotal moment when we looked at the competition and we were like, well, they all look frankly terrifying to ride. Okay, if you've got a smooth road with no one else on that road or nothing else to maneuver around or no kind of obstacles to avoid, or you're always riding in the daytime and you're always wearing a high-vis jacket, perfect. But actually, in the real world, nighttime, potholes, sticks on roads, cars overtaking you, people jumping out on the road, all these different scenarios, I think I remember, kind of looking at it and thinking, actually, all those real world scenarios are a real problem for everything that was on the market.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think it was actually quite a different market to the one we've, found ourselves in a few years later. I think there are some actually very good products out there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You refer to Pure, and, I think credit where it's due.
Absolutely.
They've done a fantastic job, particularly with their more recent products. We've always been very impressed by the likes of Tor, which started in the UK. I think we've got more of a focus now on LA, and then our friends down the road with Oscar and Harry and the work they're doing with Bo. It's great. It's really good to see. Other e-scooter companies really kind of pushing the boundaries when it comes to kind of design and function. And I think it just illustrates that actually this is not necessarily a market that's going to stand still. It's just evolving very, very quickly, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think for a while there's kind of been an elephant in the room when you look at e-scooters.
Yeah.
E-scooters, putting everything else in terms of micro-mobility aside, just e-scooters, there is this kind of perception that they're not safe.
And they're a bit of a menace, right?
Yeah. And, one of our the guy who's actually our project monitoring officer from Innovate UK.
Yeah.
He himself 2 years ago, was in London walking down a high street, and he got knocked over by someone on an e-scooter.
Unfortunately, it's not uncommon.
So that was an interesting conversation when we started that, when he kind of realised what he was involved with. But
I think what you're highlighting here is that one of the things that we really wanted to address from the outset with high level safety, basically.
100%. It had to be. That was the negative perception which the sort of majority of the population had around that. And particularly in the UK, right? Because every other week there was something about, these hooligans are flying through a shopping centre, they're knocking people over. But it's been really interesting, I think, and I'm sure you'll agree to this. When you look at Europe, how much more integrated micromobility is, particularly e-scooters, into the sort of public awareness in terms of moving around the urban environment. Many more scooters on the roads in the likes of Spain, Absolutely. France, Germany, Italy.
We should probably touch on that briefly. At the moment, you can obviously rent a scooter here in the UK.
Yeah.
But you can't. You can buy one, but you can't operate it on the roads. Although we're pleased to see, and you and I obviously closely monitor this. The Queen's speech last year, we've seen a clear sort of indication that private electric scooters like ours will be legalised. You will be able to operate them on the roads, but we are unfortunately still at a point where we don't have time frames and we don't have details. So, it's kind of watch this space at this.
Yeah, I think it's a frustration, all of us, and I say us, in the micromobility sector, developing new products and technology in the UK. We all share that common frustration around
it's our home market.
Yeah, but it's kind of, we all understand why and what the kind of the rules and the regulations are, but it just doesn't seem to make logical sense when you look at how well this type of mobility device, how well it fits in, particularly into the kind of cityscape, right?
Yeah.
Like Valencia, I was at earlier this year, and they're everywhere, hundreds of them, and everyone's wearing a helmet. And if you're not wearing a helmet and you get caught, it's €2,000, no questions asked, €2,000.
I bet most people wear a helmet.
I didn't see a single person, other than 2 kids who were below the legal age anyway.
Right, okay.
But everybody else was wearing a helmet. And it was like a revelation.
Well, we hope that, I don't know how long it's going to be, but, in the foreseeable future, certainly by the time...
2024.
Well, there we go.
Is what we understand.
That'll coincide nicely with when we hopefully start seeing customers taking delivery of the Hilo One. So yeah. that would be a nice place to be. So we obviously there's you and I involved in this project. I think we should probably talk a little bit about our other co-founders. So we've been very lucky in that we've always managed to kind of work with like-minded people who very much share our ethos.
I think it's really important.
Super important. Two of those individuals are obviously Dave Evans and Ashley May, who were involved in the HydroGuard project. So we'd worked with them previously.
Yeah,
they run a very exciting, successful product design studio in Cambridge, and have been designing fantastic products for years. Right,
Joseph.
Yeah, we've all got, I've got a few things in my kitchen.
I've got the Joseph knife sharpener, and to this day, it's the best knife sharpener I've ever had.
Yeah.
Other knife sharpeners are available.
Others are available, and they've done such a breadth of projects. So we really, I think for you and I, it was just almost instinctively we knew we wanted to work with those guys again.
100%. They'd always done kind of consumer products,
yeah,
but they really had an eye for beautiful aesthetics. And the word beautiful is kind of sort of convoluted in its nature in a way. Like what is beauty, and they say it's in the eye of the beholder. But when you're designing a consumer product, you clearly want to design something that fits in with what people want, so it's desirable.
Absolutely.
And I think for us, when we were thinking about, do we want to be looking at the possibility of designing and developing our own e-scooter? So we looked at all the competition, and we realized no one's really addressing safety from the ground up. Okay, some had little lights at the front, little lights at the rear, a bell, and that was about it. And from a side view at night time, there was no visibility really whatsoever. And in fact, I think it was the International Transport Forum who in 2020 issued a study and a report, and it was 80% of all fatal accidents occur at night time. And it's almost always involving a car, a person on an e-scooter.
Yeah.
It's dark. they've come from the sides. You know, they're wearing dark clothing. It's kind of a recipe for disaster.
It is a recipe for disaster, and these small rear lights on an electric scooter, which is a couple of centimeters off the ground, is just not. It's not sufficient. You're not going to see that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, normally.
So we've got a little bit more than.
Yeah, we did go maybe a bit. Probably the other extreme really with our Halo technology, which we'll talk through in a moment. So I think as we've talked about, we joined forces with David and Ashley. They've been very much part of the journey from day one.
Absolutely.
And I think just credit to those guys. I think what we've got with Hilo One is just phenomenal, and a lot of that is down to what we knew was going to be the capability at Studio 17. Those guys, they've wanted to do a project like this for a while, and I think they put absolutely everything into it. And I think with what we've got here today, I think it really shows.
Yeah, 100%.
So
100%.
It's
so James, let's talk a little bit about who is now our chairman, and that was kind of your initial outreach.
Yeah, I mean that was a really interesting one. I think we'd learned a little bit from Hydroguard actually. Working with Hannes, and the reality is, although we are the founding team, we also recognise that there are others who can potentially bring value to the project, and it was very serendipitous. As you remember, we were starting to see a lot in the press referring to Andy Palmer, or Dr. Andy Palmer, who is our chair, as this godfather of EV, and he was starting to get involved in some really interesting projects, and was starting to say that he was looking to move more into the EV space, having come out of Aston Martin. Had got involved in an electric bus company, Switch, had got involved in Innobat, the battery technology company, and was clearly really interested in the space. So we had a sort of an initial period where we thought it might be worth just a conversation with Andy, just share with him what we'd done. It was very early stage. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point we had a few sketches on a piece of paper, right? It was. There were no prototypes. We were really kind of asking Andy really kind of just to review what were effectively just some ideas.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got Andy down to Cambridge, and from our perspective, it became very clear how much value there was working from Andy, even in that short initial session, and I think. It was clear that we wanted Andy involved in the project. It was just about finding a way that was going to work for him, and a way that was going to work for us. And I think we took it slowly. Obviously Andy had to get to sort of see what we were about and what our vision for the company was. But essentially, I think Andy got more excited, and he very kindly offered some of his time, and was offering some incredibly useful advice in those early days, which I think has definitely helped guide Hilo and has got us to the point where we are today.
Yeah.
And then he realised, as much as we did, that we needed to build a prototype.
Yeah.
And that was a moment where Andy basically said, "Well, look, I will invest, and let's see what you guys can do. Let's see really if you can translate what are some quite nice sketches,
no pressure
into a prototype." And that was early last year. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think back now.
That was 2021.
2021.
Yeah, towards the end of 2021.
Wow. Okay. So what we were able to do is obviously take the investment from Andy, and then we were able to pool some other sources of funding to allow us to build this prototype. At that time, you and I are still, we're still in our day job, so to speak, and Ashley and Dave really kind of led the charge on building that initial prototype. And I mean, it was a brilliant first prototype. It was, for us, an incredibly exciting point, wasn't it? We had something very tangible, it started to really bring in some of the characteristics that we want.
Yeah, and I think we were also able to really bring in some of those ideas, where we'd seen from the existing products that were on the marketplace, where we've been able to identify those deficiencies, come up with ideas in terms of, okay, how can we make it more stable? How can we make it safer? How can we make it so that more people will want to adopt this and less people will be worried about the safety implications of riding this type of vehicle out on the road where there are other cars, particularly in countries that don't have the same level of infrastructure in terms of micromobility that some do. Holland, as an example, their infrastructure is incredible.
Yeah.
And in London, it's getting better. And in the big cities, it's definitely getting better. But in the majority of places in the UK, there just really isn't infrastructure to kind of really encourage that sense of confidence that being on a bike lane away from the traffic does. So
yeah, I think it was definitely starting to look at some of the problems, as you said, and I think that first prototype, it was a key moment, because it then allowed us then to also start talking to potential investors, and that's when we were able to close a funding round. Last year. With our investors IPM,
and we got the Innovate grant.
That
was touch and go for a while.
It was touch and go for a while, but we managed to pull that together, and we then basically were all in, weren't we? That was it. It was very much validation that we were on something, and we were ready to assemble a team.
Yeah, and to grow in terms of, we had a very clear direction that we wanted to go in. We had the vision. We had some of the fundamental kind of building blocks that were coming into place. The early prototype, as you said, was kind of one of those key elements in terms of being able to kind of convey the ideas that we had. And then we had effectively this kind of chunk of cash, and we were also, I remember we were also very much in a mindset where we weren't just going to go away and lock ourselves into a room and come out the other end with something that we thought would meet all those requirements and be beautiful and function in the way that we wanted it to. So I really was pleased that we engaged with Lotus Engineering.
Definitely. I think that was it felt slightly awkward at times. With Lotus, because
I know I felt awkward, because I remember saying to you, I was like, James, I feel like nothing's happened for 2 months. And we need to get going. And in the back of my head, I could kind of feel myself or hear myself saying, let's just continue what we did before. And let's just get something to market. But actually, when we came out of that and we had this new design, I remember saying to you, like, hands up, when I'm not right, I've got to acknowledge I'm not right. And I wasn't right. And it was the right thing to take that time, to get those kind of fresh eyes looking at it.
Definitely.
And to get some brilliant minds helping us with some ideas.
Amazing. I think, that's resulted in, obviously the Fold that we've got today, the sort of the aesthetics of the Hilo One. A lot of that was influenced by those workshops with Lotus. And they were a brilliant partner. They were, really throwing some very senior members of the team at this. They took the challenge very seriously. And I really do believe there's probably, there's hopefully an ongoing relationship with Lotus Engineering.
Definitely.
Because it's been, as I said, at times what felt like a slightly awkward process, just because we wanted to keep that momentum. So it's much more from us. But as you said, the outcome is we've got a product that is well beyond what my initial expectations were. So
definitely, and I think it's a product that looks like nothing else on the market. And
exactly
in the current micromobility market in terms of e-scooters, a lot of things look very much like other things.
Definitely.
So developing something which stands out is quite a challenge. but I think we've achieved it. And I think we have to pay credit to Ashley and David, because I know, James, you're kind of in the sort of business development, in the marketing side.
No, I can't take any credit for this.
No, and I just, I tend to get involved in everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes not as helpful as I could be. But obviously Ashley, particularly with his transport design background.
Exactly.
And like you said before, his aspiration to really do something that was more akin to that kind of transporty type. So what we've ended up with is something that kind of looks like a miniature superbike with some pretty incredible features around it. Shall we have a walk around?
Let's do it.
So if we start the kind of let's start first of all with the most obvious thing about this is this halo.
Yes, the halo.
So the halo started an idea as we wanted to, to make sure that this thing would be visible from 360 degrees.
Yeah.
And we had our very early design, and we'd sort of conceptualized this idea that we would have this continuous LED strip that would run around. It would be a really key signature in terms of the product's aesthetics. And then, we started thinking more and more about the dangers of other road users, and sort of challenging ourselves to really look at new and emerging technologies and how we could apply those into something like this. So this is obviously full perimeter LED illumination. At the moment, we're using addressable LED strips, so we can program those to be any color, any intensity, any kind of flash sequences. And it really gives us a level of visibility which you don't get on anything else. So the halo runs across the handlebars. Again, this is more about enhancing your own visibility. We have these kind of sort of opaque lenses. So from behind, you get this sort of blip of light. The LED runs around across the front. We can adjust the intensity of that light. Projects a pool of light ahead of you. The LED strips then run around the body, around the foot plates, and then around the back. So we've got on this, it's kind of a Tesla style party function. But this is just to really kind of demonstrate I don't know if I can turn the lights off.
Oh, there you go.
So it's this whole level of adjustment that we can do, so that you can see the rear portion, and we integrate cameras into this. So we've got two cameras. There's one camera up here at the front. There's another camera at the back. Those cameras feed into an AI image processor, and this gives the scooter a kind of level of intelligence. So it's able to identify any dangers behind the scooter. It's able to identify any obstacles in front of the scooter, and it actively communicates with other road users to let them know, to say, hey, I'm here, you're now 10 meters away. If the car gets closer, it can flash more intensely. And if it gets even closer still, the system recognizes that there's a potential danger there, and it can alert you, the rider, using audible alerts and haptic feedback. So we've got haptic motors in each of the handlebars, and they'll buzz on the right-hand side for a danger on the right-hand side, or they'll buzz on the left for a danger on the left. So it's a really cool technology that when you integrate it into a product like this, in terms of the aesthetics, you can kind of make it look amazing. And we really think it does. We get a lot of references to Tron and Blade Runner.
We don't mind those, do we?
And all those sorts of things. Just turn the lights back on, so I'll take you through it. So we've got a HMI screen up on the top here.
And that's running Android Auto, right?
Yeah, it is. And that kind of comes back to, I'll let you talk about the kind of automotive connectivity.
Yeah.
But essentially we've got handlebars here. So these then fold into a butterfly. the whole handlebar stem compresses down, and then when you fold that back, it then moves everything inside the body. But we've got on the front here a 12.5-inch pneumatic tyre, and the tyre is big, right? So this is about as big as they get on electric scooters, and there's only a few other models that have started to integrate tyres like this. But kind of if you come up to a curb or a pothole, or you've got a stick in the road or anything like that, having this larger tyre means that the scooter will just ride over it, as opposed to with small wheels, it'll just stop. And then if you go over the handlebars, you're face planting into the tarmac. And that statistically is the kind of sort of the mode of accident of serious injuries and sadly fatalities on e-scooters. So we've got the big wheel at the front. We've got this kind of incredible curved sort of main body. We've got foot plates that fold down either side. And that means you ride it in a position which is, you know, kind of much better for your body. You're much more balanced, your core's centered.
It feels more natural as well, doesn't
it? So much better. I remember when we did all the work with our prototypes.
Looking at variations,
when we were trying different things and different speeds and kind of little sort of, you know, courses that we set up. And it was just, it took a little bit longer to get used to, but I think that's partly because we were so used to that sort of traditional one foot in front of the other.
Snowboard, skateboard. Yeah.
Exactly. So the foot plates fold up on this, and we've got this sort of, you know, cut out body here. And the idea with that is that when you fold this steering stem down, the front wheel has this kind of incredibly unique hinge mechanism around here. So, you know, of course, when you pull the steering, or when you fold the steering stem down, it creates a lot of mechanical leverage, and we use that to then drive additional functionality within the architecture. So in this one, the front wheel basically kind of tilts and canters itself back inside the main body. The rear wheel folds underneath, so kind of folds directly up, and effectively 180 degrees folds, completely unique hinge mechanism that we had to design on this.
Yeah. And
the rear wheel sits inside the body cavity with those ride plates folded up. When it's all folded together,
incredibly compact,
super compact.
Yeah.
And this kind of idea that you've got like this kind of, you know, flight case, luggage, you know, cabin luggage sized object, which is easy to handle, feels intuitive. You can kind of pick it up, put it on the train, put it under the stairs, put it under the desk at work, and of course, put it into the back of the car.
I think it's really interesting, isn't it? I think obviously we thought a lot about the ride state, but that compact fold, that compact package is also really important. Yeah. How that looks in the home, in the office.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it looks as good in the fold as it does in the ride state, and that's, you know,
that's a hard thing to do.
It is.
A really hard thing to do. So, you know, we've got all these different kind of feature sets around it. You know, this is our latest prototype.
Yeah.
And we've been able to get some incredible footage of this being ridden, of it riding, of it interacting with an electric car. And the story for the Halo goes beyond this. So we had the scooter as our initial idea.
Yeah.
You remember shipping container,
yeah.
200 times X equals
doesn't
minus,
work out.
What's going on. You know, right through to thinking, okay, well, we can design a scooter which is safer than anything else in the marketplace.
Yeah.
We want to challenge that convention. And we did. And then we came up with this kind of illumination idea. And then we thought, well, hang on a minute. If we match this up with AI computer vision, can we? And the answer is yes, we can.
It becomes intelligent.
Yeah. So we've just got this product that, you know, sets that bar so much higher than anything else that's on the marketplace at the moment, that, you know, it really sort of positions itself to overcome some of the barriers to the wider commercial success, both for e-scooters as a vehicle type, you know, as well as kind of helping drive legislation for people to, you know, be able to use these things much more easily in and around the urban environment. Being from the UK, we talk about the UK, I think, when we kind of say
absolutely.
But we know that the UK legislation will consider more things around safety.
Absolutely, and I think one of the other aspects to safety, Robin, that we haven't touched on is our partnership with Unit One. So that was our first partnership. And Unit One, for anyone who's not seen, have designed an incredible smart helmet, and we have actually made a decision as a business to integrate our electric scooter with the Unit One Tharo helmet. So
yeah. But we can do that. We can kind of integrate anything to it because we've got Bluetooth,
exactly,
IoT, all the kind of technical connectivities there.
Yeah.
So I think the helmet, and I totally agree, the helmet is fantastic. And when both you and I saw that,
we were kind of partnership.
Yeah, we were kind of like, it's very, very smart, looks very, very cool, and really, really fits a need and a demand in the marketplace.
So Hilo One got launched about 2 months ago in Amsterdam,
June the 6th
by Andy and our incredibly talented lead mechanical engineer Zoe.
Yeah,
both got on stage and did a fantastic job of unveiling for the first time the Hilo One. No one had seen it prior to that.
We're in stealth mode, I think.
We were in stealth mode
for a while.
Yeah, I think people were a little bit surprised when Hilo One.
Well, we kind of threw a dummy, right?
We did because they were going to launch the previous prototype.
Yeah, but that was a good move.
It was an interesting moment.
James. You
got some interesting reactions.
Yeah, we did. But you got to there's always a bit of a game to play. I think with all these things. It was good fun.
So we've obviously got this this launch under our belts, and I mean we're super excited by Hilo One, and we're even more excited at the prospect of seeing customers riding Hilo One. So what are our next steps? We know we've got a busy few months ahead of us, don't we? I think the overriding objective is obviously to get this scooter into customers' hands. We are offering a Founders Edition to the first 500 customers.
And that's the Founders Edition colour scheme there. And so this is ice white, matte black, indeed. And we've got this really unique inlay above the rear wheel. So how many of these? How many of the Founders Editions?
We're only going to produce 500.
Okay.
So it's a limited edition run. It's now available to pre-order, so it can be pre-ordered on our new website, which went live very recently.
HiloEV.co.
HiloEV.co. And what we're basically doing is we're giving anyone who's interested the opportunity to put down a refundable deposit. So it's at £20. Refundable deposit that locks in your position.
What if they're from overseas, like Europe or America?
No problems. €20 if you're in Europe. If you're in the US, dollars.
Amazing.
So we'll make sure that anyone who has an interest in this Hilo One Founders Edition can get their hands on it.
Yeah.
As I said, really excited to start seeing the Founders Edition in the wild, so to speak, next year. I think it's going to be a really exciting moment. It was an exciting moment getting to Amsterdam. Felt like quite an aggressive milestone at the time, but we got there and we unveiled it. And
I think we can all agree that takeaway pizza 3 nights in a row is no good for anybody.
But it was worth it. It was definitely worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, that's kind of stands out as one of the highlights.
Definitely.
I think the highlights for us in terms of our longer journey. That moment of getting it there, it being on the stand, and being able to kind of walk away and just looking back and like, wow, we did it.
Definitely.
Oh my gosh, it was it was such a challenge, but everyone in the team just rose and we smashed it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a good moment that, as you said, everyone worked very hard to get to. So yeah, I think we got to the launch, and now the focus for us is to try and make sure that customers start to really enjoy the Hilo One next year. So yeah, been good to do this, hasn't it?
James, like you said, we've been talking about it for a while.
We're overdue.
And hopefully there'll be more of these.
Yeah, definitely.
I know you'll be planning more.
I think we should definitely do a few more of these conversations. I think it's nice for you and I sometimes just to reflect. Sometimes we're so kind of in it, so to speak, that we don't really get the opportunity to have a nice conversation like we've had this afternoon. So yeah, as you said, we'll continue to do more of these sessions. But yeah, in the meantime, Robin, it's been good to catch up. It's been nice to show the Hilo One, and thanks for doing that walkthrough. I think it's nice to highlight some of the unique characteristics.
Yeah, good. I mean, we're both as excited about this project as each other, and it's going to be an incredibly exciting journey going forwards. It's going to be they're going to be challenges, but the one thing I know within the team that we've got at the moment is that no one's shy of those challenges, and we've just got to make sure that our plans for growth moving forwards, that we realise those, and that everything else falls into place, and we really sort of push this, taking it forwards.
Cool.
So excellent.
Cheers,
James,
Robin.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.